So, recording and streaming video games is fun, but what's not fun is working out the logistics of getting your audio the best it can be for that in Windows, because Windows doesn't make it easy on you. But what does make it easy is Voicemeeter Banana. This is free to download software that kind of enhances the functionality of all Windows audio, and has pretty much completely replaced how I would do things on all Windows systems forever until something better comes along. I don't know. But when I recommend this to people, I see a lot of people have trouble getting the initial setup going. So this video is just kind of going to walk you through how I've done things and how I'd recommend you do things. So, the first thing I do if I install Voicemeeter on a new system is I'll go to Menu, System Settings. The first thing you want to do is check the main sample rate. This is what it's going to be operating at internally, and I think the default is 48K, but if it's 441, I usually bump that up because I prefer to have all of my things operating at 48K if possible. You can actually see my physical inputs here. My microphone is also set to 48K, so one thing that can happen when you're fooling around with this sort of stuff is the audio suddenly sounds crackly and weird. That's usually a mismatch in sample rate, and it's not pretty, so you want to avoid that. The easiest way of avoiding that is making sure everything is sampling at the same rate. 48K is a good professional sample rate, so it's perfectly good for this sort of thing. The only time you'd go higher would be like for music recording. You might need that, but there's really no reason not to do 48K in Voicemeeter. Just as an aside, if you do have audio issues and that you have crackling and you've made changes and you're like, why isn't this working now? If you go to Menu, Restart Audio Engine, that's going to cure a lot of your problems. Like it'll pop me out for a second and it'll come right back. If you're having issues, it's turning it off and turning it back on again. Try that before losing your mind over minor settings. Okay, so that's the first order of business. I'm not sure if changing that lets you makes you restart, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't. However, Voicemeeter comes equipped with these three hardware inputs, three hardware outputs, two virtual inputs, and two virtual outputs. So the hardware inputs are going to be a little bit more, they're going to be defined by those drivers and just the limitations of that hardware. The virtual ones, however, have their own control panels. So you see this is 48K on both the virtual and the virtual aux. That is not always the case. Sometimes it'll start at 441. So how do we change that? We need to go to where we've installed Voicemeeter, which would be VB Audio Voicemeeter, and there are different control panels for the this one's for this bus, and then the other one is for the other bus. So you can see right there the internal sample rate is 48. Now what we want to do to ensure this, if it's not set to that, if you click options and change the internal sample rate here. So if you do that to either of them, it'll prompt you that you have to restart before it changes, before the changes take effect. So you'll want to do that. I would just set them restart and then, resume from there. Once you're all good on that, and it is at 48, the next order of business is the inputs and outputs here. Now the inputs and outputs are actually going to refer to kind of backwards here. This output is what feeds this input in Voicemeeter. Okay? And this input is what this output is feeding. And the same thing with this, but for the aux buses. Now these are defined by windows. So what you have to do is if we right click and go to, say, playback devices, if these are set to something lower than this, 24-bit 48K, I recommend, changing it. So if we take a look at aux input, or just regular input rather, go to properties, go to advanced. This default format, that is going to be what defines this virtual cables format. So I think by default it's set to like this, and you can see it's already changed. Yeah, I definitely recommend going 24-bit 48K. Well, that's interesting. Voicemeeter input. What happened? I should do something wild. Oh yeah, okay, it just didn't update on the thing. Okay, so what you're going to do is for each instance of these in your playback and recording tabs, if you just make sure those are all set to the same thing, 48K and probably 24-bit, you want to get the most you can out of free and cheap things. You may as well drive the quality to as much as, can reasonably be expected there. So if I check the aux, I know that the aux input here is fine, but just for the sake of demonstration, actually I'm not going to do that. That's a crazy sample rate. You can see that changes, so you want it 48K. Same exact thing on this side. That's just those two. You can figure that out without me showing you again. So that's the first thing I'd do, is basically standardize your sample rate across those things. Another thing to look at is I have my headset mic right here that I'm talking into. If I look at that, it has the same sort of thing. Now this is limited to 16-bit, but we are on the highest sample rate available. And that's, that's just because it's a cheap headset. But this is as good as it gets, and as long as sample rate isn't mismatched, you're not really going to have problems. The bit depth, if this was a professional audio recording, I wouldn't be using this mic, but I use this for streaming on Twitch. Don't really care that much about it. Okay, so the Windows end of that, the sample rate, that's all set up. Now we can talk about how I have this actually bust. The hardware inputs, it doesn't matter what what order you do. I decided to use the third hardware input here as my mic, so I have it right next to Discord input and system input. If you don't already know how the routing in Discord, or I'm sorry, if you don't already know how the routing in Voicemeeter works, these buttons right here correspond to these outputs. So this is A1, A2, A3, B1, B2. Okay, so the way we have this routed is that all three of these things are going to A1, all three of these things are going to B1, and only the mic is going to B2. So, with that in mind, let's take a look at Discord real quick. So in Discord, I have my input device not as the microphone directly, but rather the aux output. Now there are a couple reasons I like to do this. The first of which is I think it's a smarter workflow to have only one application accessing the microphone, and then kind of push from there. The other thing is you have greater control going through this bus, so you have not only a fader over it, but you have the ability to do inserts and stuff, which is a lot fancier and won't be getting into right now. But if I go into like a chat here and I connect, you can see that I'm metering right there. Okay, and if I mute it, it'll stop metering. You didn't stop hearing me because I'm actually recording this bus that gets all three of these. But this bus that's only fed the mic, disappears right there once I mute it, because that is set as my mic in Discord. Now, with this flexibility, you can send things that aren't even your microphone. Like you can send music. If you have a music channel in your Discord, you can do something like that. It's easy enough to just, have another input routed to that, have your system routed to that if you just have music playing on your computer. Get into that in a moment. The output device is set as Voicemeeter input. That's this first virtual bus. And I've labeled these. You don't have to do this, but if you right-click anything, you can label a track. So I just did that for the sake of neatness, organization, all that jazz. So that's how Discord's getting in and out. It's outputting the mix that Discord generates from a chat channel. So if I have like 3 friends in the chat and we're erasing something, I can mix that a bit internally in Discord, but the main thing is that it's going to come out all tracked into this one bus. So I have my mic, I have my friend's audio, and then I have system audio, which will mean anything that Windows is outputting. And the way I've set that is just the same way you would change your playback device normally. I have set my default device to the aux input, which is this one. So that separates Discord, my system audio, and my mic, so I can mix them independently to different buses. Okay, so now that we have Voicemeeter set up, how do we actually use that with OBS Studio? I'm going to focus on Studio. There are equivalent ways of doing things in XSplit, but honestly, Studio is easier to use and totally free. So I definitely recommend using it if you are not already. Okay, so I have a scene here. It just has a capture of PJ64. Let me open Paper Mario. Get Paper Mario going. You're going to hear it in the mix because this recording is getting the mix track, and this is routed. Now it's gone, now it's back. Alright, I'm just going to put it on the little whistly song here. Okay, I'm going to leave it. I'm going to minimize it. Okay, so we need to get that into our actual OBS window, right? Because right now we have no audio from just the game capture. So what we want to do is you got to remember that these inputs here are actually system outputs that feed these, and these outputs actually feed inputs that other programs pick up. So if you want to add a mix here, it registers as an input capture. So audio input capture, let's say mix is its name. We're going to go to not aux output, because that's just what I'm feeding Discord, right? Just output. And I'm going to check use device timestamps, and I believe that is to do with allowing Voicemeeter to clock it, essentially. So if you want to minimize your errors, I just recommend doing this. I've never had a problem doing that. So now we have the mix in here. You can see my voice is going in there. If I take my mic out of that mix, you'll see it go away for a second. And you can see that's the game audio. And actually, just for funsies, Paper Mario has a nice ability to switch stereo and mono right on this main page. So let me switch it to mono here, and then go back and take my voice out. So you can see that is in fact working as intended. The system audio is being routed out of PJ64 into this bus. Get a little bit of slowdown when I goof around with that window, but That's the general gist of it, is you're able to get that in there. We're feeding the mix. If I take the game out, you won't hear it, and it'll go away. If I take my voice out, silence. So yeah, you can see that this is a really effective way of getting that audio where you need it to go. Another thing we can do actually on the system side things, a lot of people don't know about this, I think. If you click on the little speaker icon and click Mixer, you actually have every application you have running. You can adjust how much that's being sent to this bus. So if you have something that's still a little loud, like if PJ64, even if you've turned it down in the audio plugin or whatever, you can turn it down here too. So you have that flexibility to, have another sub mix here that's going in here. Much like Discord, you can actually mix how much you're monitoring your friend's audio. So that's just another layer of flexibility here. And this acts as a master fader for that to whatever buses. Okay, so we're able to get mic, Discord, and system on distinct tracks. Well, what if you're recording offline and you want the flexibility of having the mix, but also recording these tracks individually? Well, we've made it very easy for ourselves the way we set it up. So let's add some other audio sources here. Let's add, we want to add the mic, but we want to add this one since we're using this to feed that mic to everything. So let's add a new audio input capture. That'll be my mic. I don't know what I just hit in Paper Mario. It'll be aux output. That's the one. So we have that, and once again, if I were to mute this, you would see it go away. So I still have my mic, but I have this, bus control of it, which is kind of nice. And I could go into another video later about using the insert function of Voicemeeter to apply EQ and whatnot to your mic, but that'll be a whole separate thing. Okay, so now we have mix and my mic, and if I take my mic out of that aux, you'll see it go away from there. If you see it, if I take it out of here, gone. I just realized I've not had Paper Mario playing. There you go, Paper Mario. One thing I also think I neglected to mention is my A1 bus. This is feeding my headphones, so I could hear Paper Mario that whole time. So that's why I forgot that I had unchecked it. There it goes. I don't hear it anymore. Now I hear it. Now you hear it. Okay, digressions aside, here is the next thing we can do. We can add our friend's audio in Discord. So let's add an audio output capture. We're going to say Discord audio. Oh, I've definitely started a game of Paper Mario. Discord in is on the non-aux. So we do that. It's going to be empty because nothing is coming in on Discord right now. I'm not talking to anybody. And then we can add another output that is system or game or whatever you want to call it. And that would be the aux input. So then, if I take this out of the mix, I no longer hear Paper Mario, you no longer hear Paper Mario, but it's recording right here. And I no longer have my mono toggle, but you can see that it's metering right there. So that's kind of a nice thing, is we can have our mix, our sort of master, and then we have the mic separate. And if I just kill my mic, altogether on the hardware switch, you can see that the system is louder, and the game audio in the mix was about exactly 10.1 dB lower. So you can see that that is all working as intended. And if you're doing a recording and you want these all on separate tracks, what you have to do is click the little gear, go Advanced Audio Properties. These are probably sending to all tracks, right? So what I like to do is kind of in the vein of professional audio, kind of simulating that workflow. Mix on one, and I usually put my mic and then my friend's mic and then the system. So you'd have 4 tracks there, and you would have to set that in settings here. Audio, no, it's in output, recording. So you'd check all 4 there, and it'll warn you that you can't save it as a flash video, but you can do pretty much everything else, I think. I know MOV and MP4 do not have a problem with multiple audio tracks. Done it before, and you should be able to record your all of your things isolated. And then, you know, if you're exporting, you're exporting this to YouTube or something, I might use like Handbrake to just get rid of the other tracks. You know, you're probably going to be doing some trimming anyway, so if you're using editing software, it's just a matter of discarding those tracks. But it's nice to have them. So that's how you go about configuring that. And then you have everything separated out, you have everything mixed out. You know, you can map these faders to an actual MIDI controller or something, and just have it at your fingertips. And it's very nice, and it really simplifies the process once you have it all set up. So let me know if you have any questions about any of this. I hope this was helpful in some way. And let me know if you want me to go into more depth in anything.